Oh dear, there's two things I watched tonight which weren't particularly very good. Number one was the third film in the fantastic Strange Creatures Harry Potter thing, and obviously that interview that I just watched that Andrew Gold did with the organ grinder. The only good thing about it is that I watched it late. I've only just finished watching it because obviously I never got back till 10:30 or whatever it was. So I've watched it an hour and a half later than everybody else. I'm glad I never stayed in just to watch that pile of piss, because it just really was just a case. I think sadly Andrew Gold, there was an opportunity missed there, sadly. I think he did get to make Lloyd look like a bit of a mug, but again I think an opportunity was missed massively. But hey ho, nothing can be done about that now. The interesting points that I took from it is this thing. Let's go back to the Patreon money, whereupon his argument is that he has revenue coming in from Patreon funds, from YouTube plays, from selling his book, and he doesn't want to do an apology for the people and he only admits to losing 100. We know there's at least 300 have dropped out. He's lost a third of his patrons. It's at least 300. He admits to only losing 100, and he seems to be arguing with people who've left. The thing is, he's saying, well, their money that the patrons have paid me have definitely not been used for the use for sex workers. How does he know that? If you have money coming in from from selling of his crappy merchandise, from his YouTube streams, his Patreon money and his meagre book sales, you don't get a lot from book sales, believe you me. It all goes into, I can only imagine, the organ grinder's sole bank account. So is completely wrong, and so is the monkey T-Ball when he says, as far as I'm aware, no funds from patrons were ever used, for him to, to use consenting adult sex workers. Well, that's complete bollocks, because at the end of the day, I'm sure all the money goes into one account, and that money gets spent on whatever he wants to use it for, whether he wants to go and buy some new hot nuts for the monkey T-Ball, or whether he wants to go and to spend it on some new video editing software, or spend it on a prostitute in Croatia or trips to Thailand. It doesn't matter. It goes into one collective pot, and I'm sure it doesn't go the way that, well, only the money from my reluctant apostate book sales went towards the paying for prostitutes. So I can absolutely guarantee to everybody else it's complete bollocks. The money probably just goes into one sole bank account, and from that bank account he can spend the money, which he says here, whichever way he likes. So there's no way that he can actually say with any truthfulness at all and say that there's no way that anybody who donated money to him as a patron through Patreon, that any of that money was not used for the payment of paying a sex worker for sex. He can't prove that because because his money just comes in and goes out, and he sees fit how he spends it. He still calls it his money. So that's not going to change, and so yet again he just still doesn't feel like he should apologise to the people who paid him money in good faith, thinking that the money was going towards his activism, when in fact it was going to enable little Lloyd to do some organ grinding in Thailand, of all places. Thailand, let's go back to that one. He mentioned that when he went to Thailand, that in fact him and his wife had actually broken up. So what was that? Apparently, I think Kim said he didn't leave before Christmas, so let's just put that rumour to bed. He was, whoa, what a lovely Christmas. That must have been, Christmas dinner must have been an absolute belter. What an atmosphere that must have been. you know, you agreed that we could have sleep with anybody that we like, and I opened up my Christmas card and it says, no, you can't. You know, what a crap Christmas. I'm going off to Thailand the day after Boxing Day. And off he went. So he didn't go before Christmas, he went 2 days after, allegedly, you know, and he was definitely there the New Year. And apparently that's when him and his wife had broken up. Well, this may be news to her, to his wife. Maybe this is the first time that she's heard that the organ grinder had officially split with her when he went off to Thailand. And again, he reiterates that he only went to Thailand to engage in sort of in activities like scuba diving and taking in the culture nation. Never been to Asia before. He wanted to take in the culture. Oh, come on, give me a break. This is a man who had a prostitute addiction, had fallen out with his wife because she'd caught him out, and he says, look, I think we should sleep with whoever we like to at the moment. You know, little Lloyd should be able to freely roam in pastures new. You know, little Lloyd, I'm thinking about the wee man down there. And he decides, as I said before, to go to Thailand, of all places, to just solely to go over there. And obviously the resort he went into, if you want to look it up, I've done this before, it's really, really seedy. And apparently, according to this video, that when he went over there, initially it was just to do, you know, boat trips, scuba diving, you know, some food, but somehow ended up dating a sex worker. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, he's admitted that while in Thailand he dated a sex worker. How does anybody date a sex worker? You know, how does that work? Where do you meet them? Where do you meet a sex worker to date them anyway? And how does it work out? If he was there, imagine he was there for like 3 weeks or whatever, you know, the first week he was scuba diving, and then he meets a sex worker somewhere in a bar, maybe a bar, I don't know, maybe it was scuba diving. What do you do for a living? Oh, I'm a sex worker. Oh, that's interesting because I'm actually addicted to sex workers and we have something in common. You know, and how does it work dating a sex worker? Anyway, you know, okay, so you're free tomorrow night, we've got for a meal. No. Oh, why is that? Oh, I see. Yeah, you've seen some clients, okay. The next night, no? Alright, okay, shit. What about the next night? How about we go for a meal then? No, you're working as well. Fucking hell. Right, I've got a good idea. How about I pay you to go out for a meal with me. I'll date you, we'll go out for a meal, I'll pay for you to make up for the earnings that you're going to lose, and I'll be using other people's money, and it's definitely not come from people who give me money for the activism work. This is nonsense. I would love him to actually explain how, in God's name, in Thailand, that he ended up dating a sex worker. It's just bizarre, and yet, you know, I'm struggling with this one big time. He dated a sex worker. Dated. When you date somebody, usually it's in mind of having a relationship with somebody, and yet previously he said in the same thing that he wasn't having a relationship. Previously in the video he said he was never ever having another relationship with anybody outside his marriage. He was only having paid sex with them. But now he's admitted he was dating a sex worker, which means that he was trying to build a relationship with somebody. That's what you do when you date somebody. You try to get to know them better, so that potentially that you can find something in common and maybe fall in love with them, not just to pay them for sex. So he's contradicted himself yet again, and he repeats several times that the fact is he has only ever had sex with consenting adults. I kid you not. I would love to know how many of the sex workers in Thailand or wherever else little Lloyd's been, you know, hanging around, that the women there who've been sex trafficked are doing so consensually. How many of these women are forced to be in the situation they are in? I doubt that they want to have sex with somebody like the organ grinder. night after night after night. I'm sure they're forced into doing that. I'm sure they're sex slaves. And for him to say, oh, it's all above board, it was consenting adults, it's just, it's staggering. And sadly, what Andrew should have said is, did you ever think beforehand that maybe some of these sex workers, these consenting adults who are sex workers, do you think maybe they had started off being sex workers trafficked when they were children for the people that you're supposed to be here representing, people who have been victims of CSA? Did you ever think that? Sadly, Andrew never asked that question, and it's the question that I've referred to many times. Yet again, I think he absolutely let him off the hook on that one. It was good to see that most of the people who were in the live stream comments were people who aren't Lloydists, and they are people who genuinely are just fed up with this total gimp, buffoon and a liar. Again, he was portraying himself as the victim more than anything else. It's always about me getting persecuted, bullying, trolling, video, and yet this is the guy who's absolutely, as we all know, has specialised in bullying campaigns on people who are in the Jehovah's Witnesses. Apparently he doesn't like it when people judge him and do videos like I've done and many other people as well. I'm sure there were other things that came up as well in the videos, but literally towards the end there I was losing the will to live. Sadly, it's, as far as I'm concerned, it's an opportunity missed. I don't think it portrays him in a good light to tell. Again, he's not apologising. He's only apologising to his wife. He's not accepting that funds paid to infractivism were used to pay for sex workers. He's actually saying it was consenting, when in fact, you have to think the women who in that areas are, if they refuse to perform, they don't live very long. They are beaten up. They're not doing it out of, being consenting at all. They have to do it. It doesn't pull him up for the fact that the sex workers probably started off as sex trafficked as children. He goes on about him dating a sex worker while he was over there, and again he does, even though he's asked several times about sex trafficking, and he says, oh no, and basically says, well, I should know they weren't sex trafficked because I was dating one. Yet again, totally avoiding Andrew's question here about, don't you think that the women you were might have been sex trafficked? If he said yes, it would put him in a really bad light, but of course he says no. And at the end there, he was saying that he was speaking to some other YouTuber who says that they're going back to carpentry because they've been fed up seeing that the abuse that maybe they've been getting online or what he's been getting online. That sort of takes the mickey out of carpenters. I think people who are carpenters in this world are doing far better work than the organ grinder is doing presently. So why would you think that's a step down? I think for him to do anything else would be a step up in his position. Yes, I just wish he would. He said he was teetering on the brink. I wish he would teeter on the brink, jump off the cliff, metaphorically, so not literally, but actually jump off the cliff and actually close down all his YouTube activity. Yet again, it was all about him, his legacy. He's been doing this for so long, and his patrons want him to continue doing this. He seems to be completely. Andrew said it several times, but apparently the organ grinder is only thinking that people like me, and there are many like me who haven't done videos but do comments. People like me only want to destroy him, and we're just bullies. This is not the case. I've said many times, I want this guy to actually grow a big pair and actually own up and actually man up to this, to actually what's happened. And that's not the problem. It isn't a case of bullying. It isn't a case of trying to destroy him, because I think he's destroyed himself in reality. I think it's a case of that we would just like to see this guy actually be brutally honest for once in his fucking life. And that's it. Anyway, it's 5 to 12. I'll upload this. I think I've had 2 Nibicodis and Coke. Well, it's not even Coke actually. I've run out of Coke. I'm on to the lemonade now. So I'll upload this now. I'm actually just going to listen to the Q&A with Kim and Andrew to see what Kim's response to that, because Kim started commenting early doors and then she stopped. So I'd like to see what she had to say. Because I always like to hear what Kim has to say, because of course it was Kim who broke the story and she knows this arsehole better than most people, and she's probably received more online abuse than anybody out of this whole Prosygate affair. Yeah, that's it anyway. So it's well, anyway, enjoy the rest of your night. Well, actually you'll be asleep, apart from people who maybe live in I don't know, America, where part you're still hours behind us, but probably everybody else in their videos. Anyway, I'll be going to very shortly, but I'll upload it first, so bye bye.